into the show. Welcome, Sheila. Good morning to you.
Hello.
How are you?
Good morning. I'm good now. Thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. You say good now. What does that mean? What have you
Oh,
been up
just,
to?
yeah, I won't bore everybody with the morning of getting my year 12 son Patrick to school. That's okay. Yeah, that's for another day, another few
Okay,
hours
that's
away
another
past the
story.
grind day.
Awesome. So thanks for coming on the show. It's awesome. We've had a little chat prior to this, so I've got a little bit of background, but I don't know all the story, and it'd be interesting to start really in terms of give us a little bit of background about who you are and you know, tell us who you are and where you are.
Okay, thanks, Karen. This is a great idea, and I do love live because whatever you say comes from the heart. It's not rehearsed, is it? And even with
Absolutely.
the things that go wrong. So I don't think life's rehearsed as such. Quote a phrase. Anyway, yes, I'm quite correctly a motivational speaker and a stroke safe ambassador and a published author. Everything comes under the banner of a stroke of poetry, which is what started off with my book. But my history is actually 25 years as a police officer back in West Yorkshire, if everybody can actually fathom out where the accent is from. I was born in Bradford, one of 4 kids, and joined the police at 19. So we moved out here in 2008, in fact, 10 years this Saturday, the 30th of June, and started a new life. Patrick was 6.5 then, and my husband, David, set up his business. So I was detective inspector for my last 5
Okay, if
years.
people can just let us know that they can still hear Sheila, because I've lost Sheila's voice in my headphones. Can people still hear Sheila? Can you let us know?
Oh, are we getting any yeses?
Hello. Yes, Christine says.
Oh, lovely,
So
lovely.
is Sheila back with you? Can you hear her? Give us a little chit chat, Sheila, just to let people know you're
Oh,
still
yes,
there.
yes, sorry, I'm here. Are we good? Are we good to go, Karen? Or yeah, Christine says
Great.
yes.
Thanks, Christine. Yep, people can still hear you, Christine. I can't, but people can.
Thanks, Christine. Hi, I'm seeing who else is here. Oh, Melanie's here. Melanie Eager's here. She's put a heart. Hi, Mel. And
Oh,
there's 2
maybe we'll
others.
just refresh. If you want to just refresh your browser. I'm just going to reload. I think we're back.
I'm back.
Awesome. Hey, technicalities of it all, eh? So now I can hear you. So I'm sorry to ask you to just go back a little bit because I missed a bit of that. You were talking about how you had been in the police force. You were from Bradford and one of 4 kids,
Yep,
and basically spent a lot of your adult life in the police, right?
certainly. Yeah, it's what I always wanted to do from sort of doing my latter school years. Dad being a great work ethic mentor to us all as kids, really. He wanted me to go to university and study something and get a degree, but police was where I actually wanted to be. And that's what I did. Joined as a very fresh-faced, young, sensitive policewoman 5448 in West Yorkshire Police, and rose through the ranks to detective inspector, predominantly CID. I loved criminal investigation. Pretty
Awesome.
Yeah, pretty horrible at times, but I loved it. But my last 5 years were in the professional standards department in the police, where the police investigate the police. So you find out who your friends are.
Oh,
um,
okay, interesting.
yeah, but it was full on. It was full on. So David and I decided to move to Australia because David had lived here previously. So yeah, and you might not have got the fact that we've been here 10 years this Saturday. And
Wow, awesome.
yeah, and I was a ladies what do lunch sort of girl really for quite a while, and I got bored. I got really bored after 7.5 months after David set up his data cabling business, which he's still doing now. I decided, well, what can I do? So I applied for a private investigator's license, and that's what I became up until the day of my stroke. I was a
Wow.
actual PI, not the old, behind the tree with the dirty Mac and the glasses. Not much of that,
Magnifying
but
glass.
yeah, it was all very data and head interviews, lots of interviews, and yeah, really, really enjoyed that. So not sadly now, it's because I've made something of it, but yeah, I don't do that work anymore since my stroke because my brain's not the same. It's different.
Wow, that must have been an interesting but pretty challenging career. To have worked yourself up to that degree and to the point where, you're doing stuff at the top and then, having to kind of investigate other kind of colleagues and stuff. That must have been pretty kind of hardcore stuff.
I really enjoyed it actually because we investigated anything from incivility, i.e. where somebody lost the temper or they were rude to a member of the public, for instance. It was anything that any member of public complained about, really.
Okay.
Some were what we call knocked at source. They were just advised that, for whatever reason. So we did investigate some not very nice things, very serious offences on duty, because anybody as a DI, anybody who came into contact with the police, we were on call as a DI for if, say, somebody died whilst in custody or died in the presence of a police officer or got seriously injured, we got called out. So I used to deal with deaths in custody, chases following police pursuit where somebody's been died or permanently injured. And those sort of things, anything from jumping out of a window, evading arrest and hurting the legs, to be born at. So, yeah, some of them were serious. We touched upon the corruption, but there was a corruption team that did those in the main. But, yeah, there was some police officers, sadly, who went to prison for their actions because they were bad eggs, and that's what we're there for. But a lot of the other times, they were just basically trying to explain to members of the public that, yes, we're human. We wear a uniform, but we are human.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think often the sad thing is that you wear the uniform and you have to be void of all emotion. When you're being spat at, hit at, kicked at, abused. So if a police officer suddenly loses his temper or something like that, as wrong as that may be, then it's just a natural human reaction, I think. So maybe I shouldn't say that, being got out of the job 10 years now. So so I think that's where it's important to apportion that, not just blame, but just the balance of any situation that the complaint arose from, really. So, yeah, loved it though. Really loved it. Yeah,
I can tell. I can tell you got such kind of fond memories of being there. And so you came over to Australia to start a different kind of life, really, and to kind of find your feet somewhere else. And then tell us about when things started to go wrong with your stroke. What happened? What was the journey?
Nothing prior to my stroke, which is the most frustrating thing, because I didn't do gym exercise, but I walked a lot. So I was quite fit and healthy. And it was the 15th of April 2013. The day before, I'd been for a walk with friends and I'd been out for the evening with some friends. But on the actual day, I'd been gardening. I open a lot of my presentations with my poem about the day of my stroke, which sets the scene, but I'd been gardening and I'd got very hot. Patrick was helping me. He was 11 and a bit then. And simply that, he went inside to have a rest. I should have perhaps come inside, but I continued on. David was working away on the pipeline. I was determined to get the gardens tidy so I didn't have to mow the lawn when he came home. I've never done it since. And I just got hot, came inside, felt a bit sick, and shouted to Patrick to get me a glass of water. I went into the downstairs toilet. I thought, I really am going to be sick. Put my head into the toilet bowl, as one does, and that was it. Patrick, I remember vaguely being stood in front of me with a glass of water. I was slumped on the floor. I couldn't move my right side and I couldn't speak. My speech had gone. So that was pretty scary. What I found out afterwards, though, the movement of my head going into the toilet and my blood pressure being quite low, the blood has come through the basilar artery into my neck and clotted and then dissipated. So the only thing evident is a small tear in my basilar artery. So that's what caused it. On that day, the physician thinks that I'd just not drunk enough, I'd not taken care of myself. I made a better recovery because I was fit and well. So, yeah, as scary as it is, there's 56,000 strokes predicted in Australia this year, and 1,500 of them won't know why they actually had a stroke. Mine's a bit more of a suggestion and possibly built up stress over the years, and that could have been a contributory factor because we all build up stress we know nothing about. So so that was my life change, our family's life change on that particular hot sunny day. Yeah, look at me now.
Christine, thanks for sharing that they'd lost us. I've just refreshed the Facebook page, and that's actually helped to come back on. So there's some kind of delay going on, but I didn't want to interrupt your story there because it was such an important story to tell. But it's definitely still going on Facebook Live right now. It's just that there's sometimes the refresh of the browser just kind of helps that along. So what a scary moment, eh? One moment gardening and being in nice weather, and the next minute having all that serious stuff going on. That must have been pretty kind of scary, really.
Extremely scary. And I think seeing Patrick's face that day was like, oh my God, I just thought I'd passed out. I really did. And evidently I could move my left hand. I was trying to write something on the floor. I have no recollection, but yeah, my friend came round within about 5 minutes. Coincidentally, she was going to pop in that day, and between them, when they remembered what the emergency number was, because they couldn't remember it, and my friend Erin's from New Zealand, and she thought it was 911, and Patrick had 999 from England. So it's like, you just decide what it is. I'll just lay there for a bit. So,
oh goodness, yeah.
Whatever you dial, it does go through. So that's a good thing now.
Yeah.
So off to Nambo, 2 days. Rehab. My voice came back a bit too quick, David always said. And and then my walking too. So I was very, very lucky. Very lucky.
So how long was it, the period between having that instance of being pretty vulnerable and going through all that to the point where because things aren't completely back to normal, are they? You're still kind of doing rehab stuff with physio and chiropractor and things like that. So how long kind of was that period between having that first onset?
Well, I had a lot of speech physio in the hospital, but like I say, I was only in 2 days because they said just go home and rest. So within the period of time, a stroke physician said the 3 months are quite critical. And from the outset, I suffered from fatigue, and I still suffer from fatigue now. It's not that I need to go to bed for sleep fatigue. It's the real body aching, throbbing. Your body shuts down because it's usually you've done too much. But in the early days, it was managing that fatigue, which I'm still really bad at, but it's very much between physical and mental. So in the first 3 months, we got our Australian citizenship. I flew to England to see my nephew get married, and we went to Melbourne for my 50th, which probably wasn't the best idea. But again, I'd beaten this stroke. It wasn't going to get me, but when I came back from Melbourne, David was back at work. He was working away on the pipeline then, and everything was back to normal, whatever normal is. It's then that I sort of started restocking what I was actually going to do with my life. And that's perhaps when I know that's when it started to go downhill.
Okay.
prior to that, I'd already started writing poetry, only because just after my stroke, because my brain would only work in rhyme. Not that I've had a great desire to become some poet, some may say I'm still not. But, you know, that's why I started writing poetry. So what happened was I stayed in bed and got depressed. I got very depressed. Didn't really know at the time. I think I was trying to fight it, cry it out. And, you know, there's one of the quotations in my book, something like, I should remember it, you know, it's okay to cry it out, but just don't pack up and live there. But I was happy in my bed. I was safe in my bed, as many are who've gone through this. And I started writing some poetry about how I felt. I think that was perhaps, instead of talking to somebody, I don't know, some of the poetry I read, I'm not sure I remember being that sad, but clearly I was. And it was my sister who'd moved out, and she hauled me to the GP, and I got some antidepressants. So that was obviously a good thing, but it didn't make me happy. It made me flat, really flat. And it wasn't until 2014 that I met Melinda Bingley, my beautiful friend who's a personal trainer here on the coast. And I entered into one of her mind and body challenges, and that's where my life came around. In addition to the Stroke Foundation support and strategies, that's where my life changed, I believe, for the better. That was a bit of a light bulb moment, a turning point, call it what you may.
Yeah, awesome. That's awesome, and it's great that you found some kind of catharsis in, and using something which you could still do, which was to put words together and rhyme them and kind of inspire yourself in a sense, and also document, wasn't it? Also documenting your moods and your feelings and your experiences at the time of what you were going through. And that's kind of like a journal in a sense, a diary. But
absolutely is, Karen, absolutely. And what Melinda taught me through one of the mind, I mean, I'm very direct, and I know some people say I can sound abrupt, but that's, I think, because of my accent and perhaps the job I did, I don't know, but I am very direct. So learning to give yourself a hug and love yourself, it's like, oh, forget that claptrap, I just want to lose some weight, I just want to, but part of that halfway through it is what I absolutely embraced. And Melinda taught me exactly what you've mentioned, is to focus on what you could do. Yes, I couldn't go back to my old life, and I had to accept that I'd had a stroke. And many stroke survivors, especially young stroke survivors, who I'm involved with, don't have that acceptance. And it's not just stroke, it's anything in your life, any life change. Until you accept that that's happened, you can't move forward. It's a grieving process. But grieve the loss of the person you were, by all means. And it takes everybody different lengths of time. And I meet people who are still in that grieving process, and it's hard to help them. So once I learned that that was the life I had, and because of my brain not being as snappy and sharp, I could perhaps go back to that sometime in the future, who knows, but I've no desire to. So I put that behind and focusing what I could do, like my poetry and my exercise, got me starting to write poetry that was probably a bit more encouraging and about, look what I've done today. I've climbed a mountain, I learned to run, and I run my first 10K. So it's those sort of things. But what happened, and the motivation to get them published, was because I was sharing them on the Facebook sites and about stroke, and people were actually getting comfort from the fact I'd written this poem, whether it's a sad poem or whether it was a happy poem, a silly poem about, forgetting ingredients and you're making your muffins. It didn't matter. I felt that people said I was the voice for them. So that really helped me to move forward, knowing that if I published my book, I could help a lot of people, not just go through what I went through, but let them understand what they're going through, let their carers understand what they're going through, but also give them motivation to move on. So that stirs me to this day. I love doing that, and that's what, when I decided 2 years later to publish my book of poetry and other bits and bobs in it. So that What
So
else?
how did you publish that, Sheila? Just to share that, because a lot of people on Cherry Hive and a lot of women and men in business are so keen on sharing their stories, whatever that might be, whether it's something they do in their business do well, or whether it's an experience, a journey they've been on. And they want to have a way of being able to publish that and share it with a wider audience. So how did you go about sharing your words, your journey? How did that happen?
With difficulty. Thankfully, again, I'm always been a great believer that things were meant to happen for reasons. That's just me. And I believe the people that I've met since my stroke, as well as those before, but I've met for a reason, without a doubt. And Melinda put me in touch with a beautiful friend of mine called Alex Fullerton, who has a business called Author Support Services. And Alex, I knew, edited some books on the coast. She was recommended. So I went to see Alex speak at a local venue in Mooloolaba. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Alex. You should check her out. She's just beautiful. And she spoke about how she'd survived a tsunami, with the kids, with the main tsunami that a few years ago. And I just connected with her. I really thought, if anybody's going to help me do it, she will. So in the August of 2015, I had 2 book workshops. And that's where I went through. Even the first book workshop, one of them was just too much on my brain. So she said, go outside if you like and have a little rest. And I went outside and she brought a pillow. She's got a pineapple farm with her husband. Her husband has a pineapple farm. And I laid down and had a sleep on the bench for an hour because I could. And that was okay with Alex. And I just, since then, we've become tremendous friends. And she herself has had a serious TBI brain injury actually a couple of years ago, and that's another story. But she helped me. I spent days in my pajamas, David coming home without his dinner, and I got it through. It took absolutely every ounce of energy, but what kept striving was knowing that where the book would go, I think, and who would love to read it. So that was my motivation.
So it was self-published, was it, rather than going through a publisher?
Yeah, self-publishing is really hard, self-publication. Gladly, I got the support of some local bookshop owners, specifically Graham, who has the shop in Caloundra, the bookshop, and some others, Books of Budrum and Rosetta's at Mullaney, and other people locally who, my friend shares it in a clinic in, but I sell it myself and it's online, so that was the only way I could do it. It's I've got your
links as well. I've got your link. I'm going to put the links up after the show, because once this has gone live, we can share it around, and we can publicize that book a lot better, because I think there's a lot of people that are in your position that feel pretty alone right now. And I think it would be awesome for them to connect with you. And I've got a lot of ways that they can connect with you, which will enable them to feel that they're not on their own. They're not on their own in going through this experience, because it is, I can imagine, a pretty lonely place to be.
Oh, yeah, very lonely. And I know Christine's put that Alex is lovely. She is tremendously lovely. And she's a bit like me, maybe does poor self-management of her fatigue now. But, we learn off each other. We bounce off each other. We've done an article together in a magazine, and it is a lonely place. But one of the things I do advocate so much in everything I do is the moment you reach out for support, if you don't know, then find the support, let somebody find support for you. But the moment you reach out, however small that may be, means you want to get better. And the support there for you. You can't do it alone. I couldn't do it alone without my husband, my son, my friends, all the support. The Stroke Foundation, absolutely no way, which is why I do what I do. You need that support network to get better.
And you're now the ambassador, the Stroke Safe ambassador. What does that involve? Like, what is that role for you, and what does it mean to you to be in that role?
Okay, I'm one of many, actually. The sounds lovely, doesn't it? But I am one of many all over Australia. There's quite a few of us in Queensland. So what happened was, without working per se for money, I decided, well, what can I do? So a Stroke Safe ambassador role is basically a volunteer on behalf of the Stroke Foundation, who are the not-for-profit organisation who are the voice of stroke in Australia. So I'm simply the voice of for them. I'm one of the many voices. So I go around to communities, health organisations, anybody that would like to know a bit more about stroke, how to prevent a stroke, post-stroke, living a healthy lifestyle, and tips, etc., etc. They just request me through the Stroke Foundation. It's as simple as that, or request me and I put them onto the form to complete. So that's a volunteer role. So I do that in my own time. I claim my expenses back, but that is clearly a volunteer role. And certainly I've been doing that for the past 18 months. And this year, they've been asked a number of times by other organisations, which is why I spoke at a pharmaceutical conference last year for people who deal with strokes, particular pharmaceutical I probably can't mention, but they asked for a stroke survivor, because knowing, and with me, it's very much an emotional thing that I've been left with, as well as my fatigue, and people need to understand that it's not always a visible illness. I'm talking later in the year, but I can put that on at the disability conference. Stroke is an invisible disability to many, and I'm really passionate. I'm a big stroke advocate. I like knocking on MPs' doors, and we just need more funding. So I'm going to say that now. We need donations. Victoria, I've got a stroke ambulance.
You are a great ambassador.
We need one in Queensland. So, funding the federal government. I mean, people like Andrew Wallace, I spoke to last week during Stroke Week. He agreed to put the FAST message, the signs of stroke, on his Christmas calendar. How cool was that?
That is cool.
Everybody in the Fisher electorate, if you got a calendar card, has a little FAST message. Mark McCardle helped me open Stroke Week last year. He's the local MP for Caloundra. So, getting support of your local MPs is tremendously important to me. And young stroke survivors have lots of issues because they're still working age, they're still in relationships, and, they have perhaps a few more needs that they need to be addressed there and then. They struggle immensely. Depression is a big issue. So, I do lots. I've got a little group in Caloundra I formed this year with some young stroke survivors too, and I'm also on the Sunshine Coast University Hospital Community Rehab Forum. So I like to get my voice in the community if I can and be heard.
That's awesome. You are a mover and a shaker, Sheila. You really are. You're making things happen.
Somebody has to. We have to.
Yeah. It needs someone like you behind a cause like this, because there's a lot of people that they're not empowered. They don't have the voice and the background that you have to be able to stand up for what they believe in. And this, I think this is a really good lesson in business, in that, if people don't stand up and voice, what they do and how they do it and how good they are at what they do, that is a lesson in saying, learn the skills, listen and watch someone like you who has got the ability to do that, and learn from that and model that and see how you can use that in your business well to market and publicize yourself and your causes and what you're doing. So we're going to wrap up soon, but I just want you to, if you can, and I know you've done a superb little slideshow. I've seen that on my my timeline. I think it was in the timeline, or it was in the Cherry Hive group. I can't remember, but I've seen it, and it looks stunning. So I just wonder if, for people, you've got a few tips at hand. If you can just give a few tips for people who are going through what you've gone through, and managed to pretty much come out the other side and be an advocate as well as your positive, motivational person. Is there a way? Have you got a few tips to give to people that are really in the bad place that you've been in, and maybe not as good as what you are now, but they've been in that place, or maybe still in that place, not feeling great? What could you?
Yeah,
what
absolutely. Well,
could you give?
I'm just going to give another plug as well. There's something called Stories of Hope that I was involved in, that meets the last Tuesday of every month at Maroochydore, and you get 2 speakers there every month who give people that hope. So they're a free function to go to if you feel you want to listen to people. But I have a number of tips, but my first one that some of my friends laugh about, even one of my stroke survivor group friends, Alina, if you're listening, is put on your positive pants every morning. It's a bit of a tagline with me now, because I genuinely feel, whether they're the woolly ones, the silky ones, the long ones, short ones, I don't care. Get a fresh pair every day, put them on, because how you're going to have your day is how you see your day. How you see your day,
Yes.
if it's gloomy and it's raining outside, well, you're going to be gloomy and dull. If it's
Yes.
raining, think, well, the garden's going to get water. This is fabulous. Just think about the positive things. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, I can be probably annoyingly positive if people have had not the best day, but look at the end of each day and think about the positive things as well. And that links in very much with gratefulness. I believe quite genuinely, if we are grateful for what we have. I have all my limbs. Yeah, I don't always have great speech at the end of the day, and I sometimes have severe headaches. I have to go to bed, but I'm grateful for what happened because of the good I can now do, genuinely. And there's always something you can be grateful for in your day, and
That's
focus
awesome.
on what you can do, not what you can't, because if you can't do it, you can't do it. Just focus on, but keep trying. For those that need to reach out, I've got a tremendous amount of groups I can forward if it's not related to stroke, or I can come and speak as a motivational speaker. I can come and speak as a stroke ambassador. It doesn't matter, whichever head, if you think I'm going to be good for your group or for you, or give you some strategies. And really just love and live life, because we've only got one of them. And if we grumble around and mope around with the disabilities we have, and I accept I'm not physically disabled, and I know that can be a key, but I talk to lots and lots of people who are physically disabled who have that positive attitude. Yes, they can't walk. Beautiful Sarah, who I know, Sarah's got locked-in syndrome from a misdiagnosis of a stroke. She's only in her 20s. Sarah has to be fed through here. She's starting moving forward with her life and getting out of a wheelchair. But, these are the people who where I try and fight for. I try and fight for the education of young stroke survivors. And yeah, just keep going. Life's great, isn't it? If we make it great. It's how we make it. Yeah.
Sheila, it's been a joy and a pleasure. It really has. It's been, you're such an inspiration. Just watching you, just listening to you. This should be hopefully this should set everyone's day alive and light a fire under people's, posteriors. Because I think we just sometimes we get so involved in ourselves that we forget there's a bigger cause. And I think that's what you've done. You've stepped outside of your challenges and your adversities to say, look, there's people a lot worse off than I am, and I'm not going to sit down and take it. I've got things to do, places to be, causes to win.
We all like to be healthy and wealthy, but often wealthy doesn't come with healthy, and predominantly we need to be healthy. I'll just mention I am at the Disability Expo in September. It's the 14th of September. It's a Friday at Kawana. At the Stroke Foundation, My Health for Life stand will be there, where they can be doing checks on people's risks of stroke and diabetes. So I'll be speaking again for 30 minutes, something a bit different about the invisible disability of stroke. But, anything you need, any resources, just flick us a message. I'll point you in the right direction if I can't answer it.
Well, thanks so much, Sheila. Thanks for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, whoever. Thank you, Christine and Mel. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. What do we do now, then?